We are talking conversion rate optimization, potentially very broad topic, very nebulous, and we're going to try and shed a little light on how that should be approached and thought about, maybe some quick tips and techniques that will help you get more out of your conversion rate optimization, and just kind of demystify some of it, because it really is very straightforward and scientific. So I will go ahead now with my little intro spiel so that you all know kind of what to expect. So this is a weekly group call. We are calling the Growth Clinic, and so we are tackling all sorts of aspects of growth on a weekly topical basis, and we want to do a lot of Q&A. So I will be speaking, Jarrett will be adding his ideas, but at any point, if you have a question that pops up, toss it in the chat. We're not going to be like, wait till the end with your questions. I want this to be very much a dialogue and a discussion amongst peers, so that it's not just like me educating, it's me starting a discussion. And the hope is that that we'll all get value, we'll all learn and grow together and better understand not just how to market, but how to grow overall and move forward with our growth goals. So again, today's topic, conversion rate optimization, and any general questions that you have about conversion rate optimization, even if it's something that I am going to potentially address, go ahead, toss into the chat as they come to you, and we'll try and just kind of continuously answer those questions. Also, we encourage this to be kind of a community. So if there's somebody that you see, you know, from a particular company that you're interested in, you know, shoot him a little private chat. You can click on the blue arrow in the chat where it says everyone, and change, you know, to target just one person with that message. And you know, like, shoot your email address, introduce each other, you know, set up a separate call, whatever. There's a lot of smart people here, and we want you to be able to kind of form relationships and learn from each other. So all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start now that we are 6 past the top of the hour. Well, also, Jarrett, I guess more of you probably know him than you know me. I'm Ryan Baker. I'm the head of coaching and info products at Web Mechanics. And I am very much a generalist with specialties in strategy and Google Ads, kind of PPC, copywriting, that sort of thing. So I think very holistically about marketing, and conversion rate optimization has long been a near and dear topic to me, because it's a way to improve the results you're getting from any traffic efforts, and it is a rising tide that raises all ships. So,
yep. For those of you that don't know me, hello, I'm Jared. I'm Director of Marketing here at Web Mechanics. Like Ryan, I'm a bit of a generalist. I've done a bit of everything in digital for a bit of all kinds of companies, from B2B and B2C and everything in between. So we also want to, just to reiterate Ryan's point, we also want to make this a forum for you guys to solve your toughest challenges. So if there's a particular conversion rate optimization challenge you guys are struggling with, or that you want answers to, drop it in the chat and we can tackle it together. That's a big part of what these are for.
Yeah, thank you, Jarrett.
Yep.
So, and if while I'm getting things started, you want to just kind of dump whatever company you're with into the chat, so that, or you know, your role, something, so that the others that are on know kind of like who they're here with. It's not like technically a networking event or anything, and if you don't want to share that, that's fine. But again, for the sake of building relationships and community, it is cool to be able to kind of see who you're around and know what you guys do, so that there's a little more context when people are asking questions, or you know, you're looking at a name or a face or something like that. So thank you, Greg, for leading the charge there in the chat. Good work. So I'm going to start this conversation by covering testing and how we think about testing. So conversion rate optimization is very much a scientific process. As with any scientific process, you pose a question or a theory. You have a hypothesis. Well, I think that changing this will create this outcome, and now I'm going to test it. And so you set a control period, you make the change, you send a portion or all of, generally a portion of your traffic to the page with the change, if we're talking about a landing page change, and then you measure data after that control period and decide, okay, did this work? Did this not work? And then if it worked, then you set that as the new control and test something else. So that's kind of more obvious. But one thing, conversion rate optimization has been around for a long time. And one thing that people talked about a lot back in the day was like, oh, let me change the button color. Oh, dude, if you change your button colors to red, you're going to get like a 10x, performance increase on your conversions. I think we all probably know, and if you don't, there's no shame, that's not really moving the needle a whole lot. Like, color psychology is interesting, but it's not the most important thing. It's not where you want to start. So when you think about testing with conversion rate optimization, when you think about starting, it's better to paint in broad strokes and then kind of bring together the picture over time in more detail. So what I mean by that is when you're thinking of things that you can test to optimize, start with something huge like offer or headline, something that, page layout. If we put the form at the top with only a headline above it, will that get us more conversions than if we put a video above that? And, in the video, if we are covering this particular benefit of working with us, is that going to lead to more conversions than if we cover this other benefit instead? And so when you're testing something completely different like that is going to help you identify, okay, was my initial hypothesis about the problem I'm solving and how it affects my target market correct? And do I have product market match or market messaging match, which is just as important in your marketing. So starting with those broad strokes of like offer, problem, solution equation, with your messaging, headlines, target keywords, things like that.
Yeah.
That's going to get you a lot better results.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, Ryan, so in addition to zooming out in terms of what you're testing, from a sort of technical standpoint, I think it's also important to zoom out and test with the end in mind, if that makes sense. In other words, if we say we're testing and we're looking to drive more demos, for example, right? We want to make sure that at the end of the day, that test is going to result in more pipeline and more revenue, right? So, for example, if we run a test and tactically it increases more demos, we then want to make sure we're checking the back end to see, okay, are these the right demos? Are these people qualified? Are they going to convert to an SQL? Are they going to convert to an op? Are we by running this test incentivizing the wrong people that'll gum up the sales team's time to fill out that demo form, right? So it's important to keep in mind as you're testing, not just how do we superficially juke up this one metric, but think more broadly, like how do we increase, this metric in such a way that it positively impacts all the downstream metrics and has the ultimate impact on the business that we want.
Yeah, but we don't want to waste time talking about revenue. We just want more conversions. So yeah, no, that's such a great point. So the purpose of conversion rate optimization, as marketers, generally we speak in terms of like, yeah, leads and get more and look at this conversion rate. It's amazing. But when you talk to sales or when you're looking at the pipeline and revenue, depending on size of company and what you have access to and everything, like they're going to be like, well, yeah, but we need more quality. Like, yeah, we got a lot more conversions, but we had to disqualify 3/4 of them, and then 20% of what was left over was just tire kickers, and nobody was ready. And so when you're testing these broad strokes, when you're testing offer, when you're testing, the messaging and large points of that, you always want to tie back the success of that test to revenue, to pipeline, marketing source pipeline. So if you have, this should be really the focus of conversion rate optimization. You may end up missing real pipeline outcomes, real results that affect your revenue directly over time, because you don't see the conversion numbers increasing. The conversion rate maybe doesn't increase, but you're getting much higher quality. And it's better. I mean, I think we could all agree that, like, yeah, everybody wants more volume. But if you're getting a lot of volume and half of it's waste, or 3/4 of it is waste, and you're wasting time and you're wasting money, it's a lot better to narrow the focus in, speak so that you're resonating incredibly strongly with one person, one, target account or title, one role, and then expanding out from there as you prove that hypothesis. So that's really going to be a lot more effective when you're thinking about conversion rate optimization, thinking about it in terms of, okay, how do I optimize for the right conversions, for high quality, high intent, good, firmographic fit? Like, how do I speak to this person effectively? And so starting with offer, starting with messaging, starting with targeting, these things are going to be able to give you that ability to test and quickly identify how you can get that quality. So you also want to consider how, and this ties to the pipeline portion of that, you also want to consider how the things that you're changing or testing will indirectly affect conversion rates over time. So you may be looking at direct conversion rates. Okay, somebody clicked on my ad, they went to the landing page, and they bounced. But if you are able to, if you have all your data plumbing and everything in place, and you track that Gclid, check last week's episode recording, which I think was in the email you guys were sent, for kind of more of a talk on tracking and attribution. But if you're able to track that back and see that pop up again in your on your site, and then they convert after, like, going and reading a couple blog posts or something like that, then you've got a little more insight into your buyer's journey, and okay, so these people were interested in the ad, they clicked, but it wasn't a waste because they didn't directly convert. They just needed more information, and now I know that if I add some of that information to this page, maybe the highlights of those blog posts or something like that, then I can increase conversions more quickly by giving the people what they need right now, and potentially bypass and shorten that sales cycle. So educating your customer, understanding what they need to know, and then educating them more quickly on the landing page can be a way to optimize conversions. People don't necessarily think about shortening the buyer's journey, but the better you understand it, well, okay, everybody thinks about that, but no, it's not necessarily considered a part of conversion rate optimization. So shortening the buyer's journey by giving them the information that they're already looking for elsewhere on that landing page in kind of a shortened term, or a video or something like that, can be a great way of decreasing sales cycle and getting that call, that opportunity, more quickly.
Yeah, one example of how you demo form. You see those Marketo or HubSpot demo forms. That's for name, email, phone number, star sign, social security number, and everything else, and it asks for that all up front. So there's two parts of this. One is the idea of reducing friction by making that multi-step. So instead of having that one long form, breaking it up into multiple different steps. But to Ryan's point, what's key about that is also asking relevant questions that will, sorry. So if let's choose a B2C example. If we're selling windows, we might first ask, what's wrong with your windows, right? Are they broken? Are they drafty, or what's going on with them? Then we might ask, okay, how many windows are you looking to replace, right? And as we're asking these questions, that person is giving us the information that we can then pass along to the sales team, right? So when the sales team gets that info, they already know all these things that they need to close this person. But that person is also having their questions answered, and they're being led through a process that's empathetic and intuitive to their situation, right? Versus us like saying, hey, give us all this information first and then we'll contact you, right? So really meeting the user where they are in that journey, and asking questions or creating interactive experiences that allow them to move forward in that process in a way that's helpful to them, is going to be much more effective than just tweaking little things here or there, but really thinking about the user psychology, about where they are in that stage in the buying process.
Yeah, Jarrett, you bring up really, really good points there. So the way a lot of people will structure forms, especially multi-step forms, is multi-step forms I love. I think it's a great idea because you're guiding them along. You're asking for a little information and then just a little bit more, and it's they're invested by the time they get to the end of it, and so psychologically there are a lot of reasons that could potentially work better. But I think a lot of the way that it's structured is more of a sales enablement focus in like, well, hey, let's disqualify as many people as possible so that only the highest intent people get through this. And I think we want to find a balance between that and like, no, let's get every person converting. But thinking of it as Jarrett said, through kind of that a buyer-centric mentality of, okay, we want to guide them through here. We want to help them understand what they need and what to expect as we're getting their information that's relevant. And then we're also educating them so that they already have more goodwill built up. We have already established ourselves more as credible experts that care about them by the time they're done with just the initial form fill, that we've got a leg up on our competition. And so when they get to that first phone call, discovery or whatever, then we're in a better position to strengthen that relationship that's already been started in a small way. So
yeah, the other thing I'd add to that is that a lot of conversation around conversion optimization is about reducing friction. Like, how do we reduce friction for the user and make it as easy as possible for them to do the thing that we want them to do? Well, friction's not always a bad thing, right? Because if I'm not a good fit for your product or service, then it probably doesn't make sense for me to fill out your form, right? So if in crafting that experience, or whether it's a multi-step experience or what have you, we allow opportunities for that user to see, oh, I'm maybe not the best fit for this. Then we clear the way for those users that are a good fit to go through that path, while helping those users who aren't a good fit stay out of our pipeline, right? So sometimes it makes sense to add a little bit more friction so that you can get those right people in the pipeline, while helping those people who are not a good fit qualify out and saving both parties time.
Exactly. Yeah. Huge, important part of conversion rate optimization and driving leads is finding that balance between disqualifying some, pre-qualifying others, and, reducing friction enough that those that are qualified and that want/need your offer are going to go through and finish conversion at a high enough rate, while also making sure that those for whom it's not a good fit know and understand that early in the process, so they're not wasting their time or yours. So
yeah, and what you'll find often with that extra friction, just one more note on this, Ryan, is the people who are willing to go through those steps and give you that information, willing to quote unquote jump through the extra hoops, they're going to be more motivated. So not only will you see the quality of the leads increase, but downstream, those leads are going to convert at a higher rate. They're going to have much more intent to buy and so forth. So, you're essentially, sort of laying out an experience that allows your best customers, to to realize that they're a good fit for you, and it makes it easy as possible for them to make the buying decision downstream.
Right. Definitely. No, that's good. So it's understanding that this process is about collecting their information, yeah, but it's also about helping them identify what really is the right decision for them, and then helping others that it's not a good fit for understand quickly that it's not a good fit for them, and that they should go look somewhere else and stop clicking on your ads. So I want to just kind of go over some general rules of thought as you're approaching conversion rate optimization, just kind of things to look at as I have gone through and audited or kind of performed conversion rate optimization audits, or as I'm looking at landing pages in like a Google Ads audit or something like that, just kind of coaching people along. Things that I see that generally move the needle up, like almost every time. One of those, and where I like to start usually, is with the headline on the landing page. So whether that's the home page or if you're driving traffic to a particular landing page with ads or whatever you want to, I see a lift in conversions when people make that headline either problem centric or answering the problem that they know that their market has. So if you oh man, I'm always so bad at coming up with those on the spot like examples, but say the problem is with your marketing, your conversion rate optimization, then the problem that you want to address is not converting enough of your traffic, something along those lines. It can be in the form of a question. Again, this is part of the pre-qualification process and helping people think, yes, that's me. So with your landing page, a lot of people will focus on like a feature or of their product or service or offer. They'll focus on sometimes benefits, which is good. Everybody thinks in sales like, okay, yes, benefits are better than features. But if you focus on helping them identify whether it's for them or not by focusing on the problem and or the solution to that problem, we help you convert more of your traffic, then you will see a lift more often than not from just helping them know that they're in the right spot, know that this is for them.
Yeah, I think that Ryan, you speak to kind of the two key elements of headline testing here, right? One is what we would call scent trail, right? So making sure that, okay, I saw this ad and I clicked this, I need to know that I'm in the right spot, right? That otherwise the message I got in the ad, is aligned with what I see when I hit the landing page. Because if there's a misalignment there, then I'm like, oh, am I in the right place? This isn't what I was expecting. And then I'm that much more likely to hit the back button. And the second piece is creating enough curiosity and intrigue for them to engage with the rest of the landing page, whether that's a short landing page, a long landing page, giving them a reason to stay on that page so they can take whatever that next step is. And at least spend enough time to gather the information to make that decision one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely. So scent trail, for those of you who are not necessarily familiar with AdScent or scent trail, it's basically the concept that there needs to be continuity. If you've ever been watching a movie and 1 minute, Aragorn's hand is on the back of Boromir's neck, and then the next minute it's not, just throwing out a hypothetical situation, then you're kind of like, something doesn't feel right. Sometimes it's really obvious and you're like, is this the right website? Like you click on maybe a Facebook ad and it's got a lot of blue colors, and then it's something for like a sports fitness drink or something, and you click on the ad and it takes you to like a protein powder mix with green colors or something. You're like, maybe it's the right brand, but it throws you off. As humans, we're heavily motivated by certainty. And if we don't have certainty, we feel stupid, more so than usual. And so without certainty being given very obviously that they clicked on the right ad, that they went to the right page, and that you're displaying the same message to follow that trail, then without that, then they're a lot more likely to bounce rather than converting. It's all right, Tim. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tim. See you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Yeah. One thing I would, one last thing I'll say on headlines is, and I harp this to my team all the time, is clarity over cleverness, right? It's really easy to try to come up with some clever headline or something that's like really witty. But if I, as a user, have to think, especially if I've just landed on that page, have to process like what you're talking about for a second, I'm that much more likely to disengage, especially because with the era we're living in, I'm so wired to get, clear and easy information immediately, right? So, whenever possible, especially with headlines, aim to be clear in what you're talking about versus trying to be clever or witty or, come up with some fun angle. Because, if the user doesn't get it, then they're not going to continue reading the rest of the page and doing what you want them to do.
Yeah, and that's actually my next topic is, or next point really was, when someone lands on the page, do they immediately know if it's right for them and that it can solve the problem that they have? And we've kind of touched on an angle of this quite a bit, so I'm not going to harp on this too much. But it happens all the time. You land on a page and somebody has been a clever marketer and come up with this fun like alliteration or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I love that, it's so catchy, and yeah, maybe it's catchy, but you don't know what this company does, or you don't know what the offer is, and you don't know what you're supposed to do next. So I'm going to blend a couple of my points here. In addition to being very clear with your headline, with your imagery, keep your pages clean and simple. I have been on so many websites that are just messy. I mean, like 2 or 3 levels of navigation that don't necessarily like have like they're different, they're unique, but they don't necessarily like the navigation points don't really tell you what you would get if you clicked on it. And then it's like a lot of people want to be different, a lot of people want to be cool and stand out, but you will convert better if you are clean, simple, and clear in your delivery of the information, in the way people can navigate. So in part, this is removing friction. Just kind of, people are busy, people have decision fatigue, they don't want to think, especially in B2B. If you've got somebody who's constantly trying to do their job and then now they're tasked with going and solving something, finding a vendor for something, then they're going to be busy, they're going to be frustrated, distracted. And if you don't immediately give them what they want, what they need, and make it super easy for them, a lot of times you're going to suffer for that in your conversion rates. So all of those other things that we talked about earlier, that all kind of, it all builds on each other. So, don't toss the baby out with the bathwater, but, make it relevant to them, but also make it as easy as possible while still delivering the value and getting the information that you need, and helping them self-identify as the right fit.
Did you guys watch the Super Bowl? Did any of you guys watch the Super Bowl or catch any of the commercials?
I forgot it was on.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know if you guys heard about the Coinbase ad. Yep. Yeah, if you didn't see it, it was basically just a QR code that was bouncing across the screen for about 3 seconds a minute, however long it ran. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I think Ryan, you have a point coming up on this, but a lot of the other commercials were very clever, right? They featured celebrities, they were really catchy, they were fun, made you laugh. But one could argue that Coinbase ad was probably the most effective ad in the Super Bowl, and they have the metrics to prove it, right? And they crashed their own website doing so, which is another issue. But all it was one CTA. Right? If you know what a QR code is, you know exactly what to do with that thing, and you had ample time to do it, right? So, it speaks to the power of, sometimes clarity and, making it easy for users to take an action. The desired action is a lot better than trying to use that space to convince them, right? Especially if you had that one opportunity to capture their attention. sometimes one CTA is all it takes. So, it's just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about, how much information you do or do not want to have on your landing page.
Yeah. And that is a great example. So that's I heard numbers like they got 20 million people scanning that of the like 100 million people watching. That's a decent conversion rate for your CTA. So yeah, it's absolutely essential that people know what to do next. And so to transition easily into that, calls to action. If I've been on a lot of websites that were like, hey, call us or chat with us or request a demo, or it's like, hey, we want you to have all of these options for speaking with us. And it's nice to give people options because different people communicate in different ways. But the better you know your customers, the better you know your buyers, the more like, hey, okay, so like 75% of people prefer to chat online, so we're going to make chat front and center. Start a chat, and then for the other 25%, like they'll find out how to contact us, like they'll click on the contact us page or something. But if on your landers, if you want people to request a demo, make that the CTA, make it front and center, make it easy to see, and then drop it a few times throughout the body copy or something, and then again at the bottom of the page. Like, just let them know this is what to do next. If you want to get started, this is what you do. I was on a call with a company right before this this growth clinic, and their CTA is so prevalently displayed, and it's like, I'm going to talk about the color of it because it was, it's like bright pink, right? So it stands out, so color psychology, keep with your brand and everything, keep it consistent. But make sure that the call to action buttons don't blend in. So as far as color goes, that is important. Make sure it stands out. It's easy to see, clean and simple. And as far as like getting into details versus, testing, broad high level things, they do say that having, a somewhat unique call to action text does help increase conversions, rather than just submit. If you have something like get started or start your 14-day free trial or something, like send me my white paper, whatever, you're likely to get more conversions because you're helping them affirm with certainty they know what they're getting when they click this button, and it's what they want. So as far as calls to action, just give them one per page. Maybe on the homepage you can have like, call us or, request a demo, whatever. But I would just display one as prominently as possible that is going to be your highest intent conversion, and then kind of make all of the others as secondary and background as possible. Like make them available on like the contact us page or whatever. But make it super clear how people can move forward with you to get what they want, and understand any objections that they'll have to making that decision, and try and overcome those as quickly as possible on the page, with content, in writing or videos. Knowing your audience, super important here. So sometimes video can be a huge conversion booster because you can answer all of the questions that they have, wax poetic about the brilliance of the offer, overcome objections, and even show like a demo kind of what to expect, so that they can understand like, hey, this is for me, and this was a concern, but they take care of that. You can do that so much more quickly, and they don't even have to read. Like, it's just being given to them. So testing video, at least for landing pages, is kind of a no-brainer in most cases. Another quick point, I think avoiding sliders is a good idea. So from on a home page or landing page, this kind of ties into the previous point. I've seen a lot of people with their homepage or landing page that just has a slider as the hero image, and each slide has a different headline and a different CTA, or even the same CTA but a different headline. And that if you're going to do something like that, just split test your traffic to different pages and see which one performs better. But from what I've seen, usually ends up slowing down performance. It's a bit distracting, and you're kind of trying to get people to do different things or focus on different things, when really the point of the landing page should be to focus singularly on the next step. Like, here's the information you needed, here's how you can move forward with us, and all you have to do is click this button.
Yeah, I found that sliders are often the result of committees designing websites. It's like, we want our information included on the homepage too. So you have this homepage slider, and then it accomplishes a lot of things and therefore nothing, because the user gets to the page and like, what's my objective here? What am I supposed to focus on? So, I mean, if the goal of the website is to for marketing and to drive new business, then you got to make that front and center, and then create paths and user journeys within the website for those other objectives, right? But at the end of the day, if you are trying to do 50 different things and using a slider to do that, I've never seen it go over well.
I had a quick question. Back to one of your earlier points, Jarrett, you're talking about friction, maybe not necessarily being a bad thing. Like, you don't want an influx of leads at the wasting of your sales team's time and qualifying or disqualifying the majority of those leads. But how do you balance some of that sort of like disqualifying themselves and making sure you get the right amount of leads with maybe some follow-on qualification in an automated or streamlined way, so that you're not risking dequalifying ahead of time, people like dequalifying themselves when they could potentially be a fit. But there's a bit of that sort of like checkpoint in place.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things you can do. One is what we might call scary copy. Chris, our CEO, sometimes calls it scary AI copy, where the idea is like, basically explain who this is for, especially at those key conversion points. Like, this is for companies that are 50 employees and up, and or have this many users in their database, whatever that qualifying sort of threshold is. And then to your point, there are a lot of things you can do on the back end, right? So say you have these people that don't fit the criteria, right? You treat them differently, once they get into your system, right? So say they fill out the form, they go through the process, and say your criteria for qualified, just for simplicity, is 50 employees. On submission of that form, if it's under 50 employees, you could send them just to a page where they say, hey, somebody will be in touch with you, and you still have sales follow up, but you deprioritize that lead because it doesn't meet your MQL criteria, right, or qualified criteria. Whereas if it's 50 and over, you might want to reduce that friction. So you say, hey, you filled out this form, now go to this Calendly or Chili Pipe or scheduling booking tool to schedule your appointment, right, with a sales rep, right? So depending upon how they answer that, contingent on how they qualify in, you can either remove or just not add any additional ways for them to get on the sales rep's calendar, right? And the other thing you can obviously do on the back end is, if you have a HubSpot or Marketo, is then you can have scoring and route that lead appropriately based on how they fill out that form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's all good. Thanks.
Yeah. So I've seen that done really well. Actually, I think TopTal.com did a really good job with that, in that they have a pretty long form if you don't meet their criteria for premium lead. So depending on how you answer that first question, if you front load your kind of submission form, you almost treat it like a quiz, which you could do a quiz like, hey, see how much you could save by XYZ or whatever. And then, it's just kind of like, oh, a submission form, but it's fun because I get to, answer questions and talk about myself, whatever. And then, the first question is like the most important for determining if they're a good fit, which I think in their case, it was employee count or something. So like, how many employees does your company have? And you answer like, 1,000 plus, and it goes straight to booking a call. For everything else, there were like 10 steps. For like the bottom one, especially, it was like a really long form, and I was just like, dang, like they need a lot of information for this. So you can make it a kind of a conditional logic thing where if they are firmographically a really good fit, of course, on the landing page, you want to make sure that all the copy, the headline, and everything helps them self-identify as far as like the problem and solution, that is correct. But then firmographically and pre-qualifying, disqualifying, you can front load the submission form with questions that will determine as quickly as possible if they're a good fit, based on your lead criteria, and then change whatever the next question is based on their answer. So like reduce like all of the friction if they're a good fit right off the bat. And then, if they might be a good fit, but you need more information, then ask the next question and try and make it as simple as possible. You can also on the body copy or before the form submission, whatever, just like hey, like warning, if this is, and that's a bit cheesy, but be very, very clear, like, hey, if you have if you don't have this and this, like, we can't work with you, or like we can't help you, but like you check out this resource instead, or something like that. That's pretty extreme, but for those who it is a good fit for, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, this is kind of an exclusive offer, like they only work with people like this, and that's me, so like I kind of feel like maybe I'm getting somebody better. It's a bit of a risky test, but I mean, very obviously disqualifying those who can't work with you, and then kind of making those who can maybe feel a little special. So
yeah, two last things I'll say on this. One is another way you can do this is use tools like Clearbit, which will enrich. So say basically what you would do is you would have someone enter their business email first, and then based on that business email, if Clearbit is able to identify that and it's able to match it with an account in your target addressable market, then they'll get one experience. And if it can't, then they'll get another experience, right?
Oh, interesting. I haven't heard of this.
Yep.
Yeah, because like I know, the best practices and a lot of what you guys are talking about sounds great, but it requires a certain level of maturity for your funnel, your tooling, all the plumbing, and for an organization that's a little bit more traditional, like
and that was my other point is it's very volume dependent, right? Like if the number of leads you're getting overall is not a bottleneck, like if the number of form submissions, if it goes up a little bit, it's not going to be a big deal, then it's maybe not worth implementing all of this, right? Or creating more friction for users. Whereas if that becomes a bottleneck, it's the point where the sales team can't handle this volume, or you're having to start putting systems in to route it, then that becomes a point where you can start implementing some of these processes to help with the management of the lead flow. But you're right, it is very context dependent.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you for bringing up that point. This is another point that I had thought about. I don't remember if it was in my list of things to talk about. Yeah, okay, it kind of was. So when to consider all of these conversion rate optimization things. First, you're getting a lot of traffic and a lot of conversions. You're not really having trouble with that, but you need to get more conversions for the money that you're spending. So you can't necessarily raise budget, but you need to get more conversions. Like, that's when you want to start testing conversion rate optimization things. Another, there's a first step to consider. So if you're getting a lot of traffic but not a lot of conversions, conversion rate optimization might not be your first step. You want to look at traffic targeting and messaging on the traffic side before looking at conversion rate optimization, because if you're not on with your messaging, if you're not on with your targeting, those things are going to have more of an impact than testing a different headline or call to action. So look at this with all conversion rate optimization, top down, broad to narrow. targeting messaging first. If you're not getting a lot of conversions, start there and then look at conversion rate optimization, because hitting the right audience with the right message at the right time is a lot more likely to bring you conversions than hitting an okay market, like maybe it's the right time, maybe it's not, and then sending them to a landing page with like a great call to action and headline, and your form has conditional logic and everything. Like, just, it's not going to make as much of a difference.
Yeah, and that raises a great point about when you're thinking about testing, sometimes the quickest win or the best opportunity isn't always at the bottom of the funnel, right? Because if you're only getting 100 visits to your demo page a month, it's going to be a really long A/B test. It's going to take a long time to get some statistically significant data on that. Whereas if you're getting like healthy traffic, like thousands of visitors to your homepage, then there might be some opportunities. I think, Ryan, you're going to go into this in a sec, where you can start to capture that user, get them engaged, get them into your funnel, give them a strong offer so they join your email list, and start that process of engaging them at the top of the funnel, where you have that biggest volume of opportunity, versus trying to push them to a demo when they're not quite ready yet.
Yeah. So that is one thing. One of the hardest parts of marketing in general, not to mention, the conversion rate optimization, is the fact that just not everybody's ready. And so you want to get as many people as possible who are ready. But for those who aren't, how can you help them be ready faster? And that all comes down to understanding your customer, understanding the buyer, and their journey, and what problem they have, what questions they'll have about that problem. So I had kind of my notes sorted into like general rules, quick wins, and then not so quick wins. A not so quick win that will lead you to way more wins, because that's the way I look at it. Like, quick wins can lead you to some wins, and sometimes they pay off big. But it's a like a one and done kind of thing. Not so quick wins, the way I view it, is like it's a strategy that will provide compounding growth over time to the point that you get way more. And so that is understanding your customer, and gathering qualitative data, voice of customer data, having a process for collecting that, and then for reviewing for insights and implementing based on those insights. And that's something that, like, if you want to optimize conversions, then having the right messaging, the right targeting, like understanding your customer and just really zeroing in on them is the best way to do that. So the reason we do conversion rate optimization is to test our hypotheses about those, gather data, and then optimize and then test more. And so if you're getting qualitative data to add to the quantitative data that you're getting from your testing, then you're going to end up with much better compounding growth over time, much better results from your conversion rate optimization. So,
yep. And Greg, you had a really good question about any companies or specific landing pages you could share. As a great example of doing CRO, used to work at AOL, and frequently check the direct response partners who are driving leads conversions to see what tactics I can pull from them. Yes, actually, we do have some pretty good examples. So these are going to be more on the B2C side, but hopefully they'll stoke some ideas on the B2B side. Hope you don't mind, Ryan, if you want to enable screen sharing, I can share my screen real quick and just show a couple of examples.
Yeah, let's see here. Okay, you should be able to.
Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
I'm glad you had this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of our clients, they were in the debt consolidation space. There are a couple things. Their landing page was multi-step, but it was kind of dated, kind of a dated look and feel to it. And another thing they weren't doing, this is more on the paid side, was passing signals back to Google and Facebook when users complete these steps. For example, you'll notice this debt slider here, how much debt do you have? That's basically a qualification criteria for them, right? So I think it was like if they have over $10,000 or more in unsecured debt, then they become a qualified lead for them. If not, then they can't work that lead, basically. So what we did was we cleaned up the experience of the landing page, made it more modern, made it more mobile friendly as well. And the other thing we did was we started, on the paid side, passing these signals back to Facebook, right? So that when someone had over $10,000 of unsecured debt, that became a lead, right? And we only fired that when that person met that criteria, right? And what wound up happening was they went from, you can see 3.5% to 12.9% conversion rate, right? And the cost per qualified lead went down very significantly. The main things here were basically thinking about what experiences the user expecting that we're not giving them right now. Some ways to do that are to get qualitative data using tools like Hotjar. You can poll your users. You can look at user session recordings. You can also run user surveys and just straight up ask users, a series of questions as they go through this experience. Do you trust this website? What's working for you about this? What questions do you have? What's unanswered for you, right? And as you merge this sort of quantitative and qualitative data, you can start to understand where those gaps are and what you have to solve about the experience. And back to Ryan's earlier point about big changes, this wasn't a small tweak, right? We weren't just like changing the color or the button or what it says. We were changing the entire experience, right? Because this funnel was a big driver for this client. So, in order to refactor the experience, we needed to make these big sweeping changes that met the user's needs that weren't being addressed at the time. So that's one example. Just one other quick example here. So window client, I think I alluded to this earlier. They had the same landing page that everyone in their space had, right? Get a free no obligation estimate. They were converting at 7.5%, which isn't bad. And those leads converted to appointments at 35%. But what we did was we changed it to a multi-step experience, right? So we did create some urgency here. We changed up the headlines a little bit, but we asked, first and foremost, before we ask for any information, what's wrong with your windows, right? And then how many windows do you need? Where do you live, right? And then we would ask for that customer's information. The visit to lead conversion rate went up to 17.29%, and the conversion rate went up to 51%, right? Because we were starting this experience by asking that user, meeting that user where they are, right? They've landed on this page because they have a problem with their windows and they know they need to get them fixed, right? So instead of saying, hey, give us what we need, and then we'll contact you, or a sales rep will hound you, we are meeting them empathetically by saying, hey, what's wrong with your windows, right? That's where they are, and they know that they need to solve it. So we're guiding them through that journey. So those are just a couple of examples. Let me know if that's helpful.
Yeah. Also, a couple things to point out that I noticed in these. So, there's a little bit of urgency here on this offer with the offer countdown. But one thing I really like is that it shows how many steps there are. So if you're not using conditional logic and you've got everyone going through the same form, let them know their progress, like how much time they'll have to invest in this, because that will provide more certainty. They'll be more likely to engage if they know what they're getting into. So if it's just kind of nebulous and you're like, yeah, here's this question. Oh, and here's this question. And then they're like 6 questions in that, well, they may bounce even if they only have 7 questions. But if you let them know how much work they'll have to put into it and they're willing to make that exchange, if you can keep the number lower, then you're likely to get a lot more follow through on those form fills.
Yep. And just to anecdote a quick B2B example, we had a client where we ran some polling, and we found basically it was software, a mid-market software company, and they were looking to convert folks to a demo. What we found was people just wanted to see the damn platform. They didn't want to get on the phone with the sales rep just yet. They weren't quite at that stage, but they were interested, right? They did want to see the platform. So all we tested was an option where we added I forget what the text was, but it was basically to see a video demo. We added that as a radio button option on the form, and it cranked conversion rates through the roof, right? Because it lowered that friction for those people who were quite ready to speak with a sales rep and allowed them to see the platform in action. And then, of course, I'm sure they were hounded by sales reps, but they got to have that visibility into the platform that they needed to have that level of confidence to take that next step.
Yeah, and that's more insight into, knowing your customer, knowing what they want, giving, reducing friction, and being able to answer the questions they have. So helping them visualize what life will be like using the product can be really helpful. So it is like, well, it's 11:58 my time. I'm Central, so 12:58. We're at the top of the hour. We have time for like a last minute question. I can stay a little bit longer if you have anything that needs to be discussed that is going to take a couple extra minutes. Other than that, we are always open to topic requests. We're going to be bringing on some guests in future weeks to discuss some really cool topics. I'm excited. Conversion rate optimization, we have a lot more we could have talked about, but I think we covered the most important things. Any final questions from anybody?
Yep, and I'm just dropping some of the tools in chat here that we talked about. So clearbit.com for that enrichment of when someone fills out their business email. Hotjar is a great tool. We've talked about this tool in previous growth clinics. Winter with a Y is great, especially for B2B insights. You can run your own B2B customer panels. It's fantastic for that. And then obviously Google Optimize and Optimizely. There are many A/B testing tools out there. Anything I'm missing, Ryan, or anything that?
I mean, I think that those are great. We don't want to necessarily overload people. So if you have more questions about like what tools to use for XYZ specific use case, don't ever hesitate. Send me an email. If I can't answer it directly, I'll contact Jarrett, our tools master. So we'll get you the answers. We want to be available to help you answer these questions, whether we're on these calls or not. And then if it's like a really popular question that could help a lot of people, then maybe we'll make it a topic for one of the calls. So.
Yeah, and if you guys ever end up testing some of these stuff or test out some of these ideas we talked about today, let us know and let us know how it goes. We'd love to see your win stories rolling in.
Yeah, we want to celebrate with you. So thank you all so much for attending. We will keep you posted. We'll send out an email probably on Monday letting you know next week's topic. And again, anything specifically you're grappling with in your business, your marketing, your work right now, shoot us an email and maybe we can make it a topic. So we will get those questions answered. Thank you all so much for attending. Hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next week.